Once upon a time, in a little room immersed in the stillness of the night, a little light was flickering, seemingly unable to rest. For many years, she had protected her mistress's sleep through the darkest nights. But now, something was troubling her deeply. The little light gathered her magical energy and began to flutter around the room. She needed to clear her mind. She paused to look at a picture of her keeper, Alicia, with the thoughtful but determined air of someone who knows it's time to act. The girl with the sweet and ready smile was in a dark place. But the little light had a plan. All she needed was a willing helper, and she knew exactly where to find the perfect candidate. The little fairy's voice boomed throughout the cave, with the force of a mighty roar. And the roar grew louder, and louder still. The cave itself was roaring. From the walls to the vault, everything started shaking. The cave was collapsing! Teddy ran towards the sunlight as fast as he could, dodging the deadly rocks that were falling all around him.
Teddy pera ka, Teddy yung ko.
He summoned up his last reserves of energy. And he leapt out of the cave, just before it came crashing down behind them. Safe from danger for now, Teddy and Letty paused to catch their breath in the verdant clearing.
Finally!
Suddenly, an unknown heroes. They were trapped. A terrifying giantess lifted the jar to examine her spoils. Pleased with her haul, she walked away humming contentedly to herself, taking our unfortunate bear with her. Transported against their will to an enormous castle, a pungent and revolting smell overwhelmed our two heroes. They were in a kitchen, surrounded by a vast selection of the finest ingredients, but everything was rotting. The giantess placed Teddy on a shelf, making sure he couldn't get out. Then she walked away happily, but she would be back. They had to get out of there, and quickly. Teddy jumped onto the paper airplane, animated by Lighty's magic. As the giantess's hand fell upon them, the two heroes took flight, escaping the terrible creature. The king, furious, ordered his wife to chase them. She had to catch them at any cost. She broke into a desperate run, reaching up, 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 to seize the two fugitives. Without realizing, there was no longer any ground beneath her feet. Free of pursuers, their journey continued without incident. Then Teddy saw a mysterious floating island in the distance. The airplane glided down to the surface of the sea, and Lighty promptly turned it into a small boat. Our plucky adventurers had reached the fabled never-again land. Just then, a sudden gust of wind blew out of nowhere. The fairy dust scattered on the wind, and the unfortunate bear began to fall. He fell into the deep blue sea. Teddy gasped for air. His fur was soaked through, and he struggled to stay afloat. He hadn't noticed that the ominous black smudge below him was getting bigger and bigger. An enormous and terrible dogfish emerged from the waves and swallowed them whole. Before sinking, Teddy and Lighty found themselves in the dark, vetted belly of the beast. What had begun as mere sparks were starting to burst into hungry flames. A roaring fire soon broke out, and Teddy and Lighty were forced to flee. The laboratory was now completely engulfed in flames, and thick smoke spread through the beast's entrails, eventually irritating the terrible dogfish enough to cause it to spasm and sneeze violently. Teddy and Lighty seized the opportunity to let themselves be launched out of the huge creature. onto the seabed with the dark and mysterious ocean all around them. Teddy kept going, running, swimming, and flailing through the putrid slush of the sewers. When they reached the end of the pipe, our trusty companions found themselves in the city's enormous sewage treatment facility. There seemed to be no other way out, so Teddy decided to try pulling the chain in the center of the room. The room flooded with water, creating a whirlpool that flushed them away along with the waste, like an enormous toilet. Tossed about and half submerged, Teddy was sacked into an even more tortuous pipe until he was finally spat out of a drain in a jet of slime. The drain seemed to have dropped our heroes into an equally fetid swamp. After a grueling battle, Teddy managed to force the terrible dragon to land. To save Alicia, there was just one last thing to do, and Teddy was ready to deliver the coup de grace. He summoned his last reserves of energy, gripped the sword tightly with both hands, and threw himself against the enemy with every ounce of fury he had in his body. The thought of Alicia was his beacon, the dragon's beating heart, his target. Teddy prepared to deliver the powerful and deadly blow, when suddenly, at the last moment, Lighty removed her charm from his scissors, turning them back into two harmless pieces of rusty metal. The bear, confused, lost his balance, turning just in time to see a powerful magical ray, piercing both him and the dragon. Betrayed and defeated, he collapsed on the battlefield. Teddy was immersed in impenetrable darkness. He allowed himself to be lulled by the voice. No little girl to save, no enemies to fight. Fine. So what was that nagging sense of discomfort which was becoming more and more intense? Could the thought of having abandoned Alicia cause as much pain as being pierced by a needle? A porcelain doll was wounds. As he was looking around in confusion, the witch cat hovered. He shivered. Was this the end? The cat reassured Teddy that nobody meant him any harm. But the time had come to clarify. To clarify what? That the demons he had killed were Alicia's dream guardians, the defenders of her inner realm. But how could the guardians have taken on such monstrous forms? The cat explained everything. Alicia's subconscious was reacting violently in order to protect her, like an immune system attacking a virus. And this virus had a name. Lighty. So that sneaky little bug had been trying to worm herself into Alicia's subconscious to corrupt her. But why had Lighty chosen him to carry out her evil plan? The answer was simple. He was the strongest and the bravest of Alicia's guardians. Was he really one of the guardians? How could he have forgotten? When Alicia had abandoned him in the chest, a crack of weakness had opened in his soul, giving Lighty the opportunity to put her wicked plan into action. She had wiped a vital part of his memory with a spell, causing him to forget his true role and his power. The frightful fairy had tricked him, turning Alicia's most stalwart defender into a ruthless weapon to attack her with. The defeat of each monster had nourished Lighty's magical powers, allowing her to grow stronger and stronger. Teddy was aghast. So that was why the witch cat seemed to have always known him while he couldn't remember anything. He had forgotten that she had once been his most trusted ally in protecting Alicia. He had forgotten that the cat was a unique creature that resided in the deepest part of the girl's subconscious. The cat was her limbic system, her superego, the supreme entity that defended her unconscious self, and as such, her powers could only be fully manifested in the furthest reaches of Alicia's dreams. The witch cat could only look on, helpless, helplessly from afar as events unfolded in the rest of Alicia's dream world. At first, the cat was enraged as she watched Teddy assault Alicia's dreams, but she knew that mere words would not be enough to convince him of Lighty's true nature. She decided to try provoking him, mocking his beloved mistress, hoping that his anger would reawaken his memory and rekindle his powers. Unfortunately, things didn't go according to plan. The cat was thus forced to play a more subtle game, lurking in the shadows, waiting for Lighty to reveal her true nature. Each time the witch cat met Teddy, she had absorbed as much of his power as possible in order to heal the wounded guardians. The fog in the bear's head was slowly clearing. He still had a lot of unanswered questions, but his anger at Lighty's betrayal and his determination to save Alicia awakened a strength that had lain dormant for too long. A burning fire, ancient, powerful, and reassuring, enveloped him. Teddy had become more savage, a feral creature. To fight a nightmare, you have to become one yourself, he finally understood. The time had come. The witch cat sent him back to the world of dreams, but nothing was as he remembered.
Alicia is safe!
You did it!
Yes! By a whisker!
My hero.
I didn't do anything that special. I just turned off the light.
Well, when you put it like that...
Nonsense. His deeds will inspire ballads for years to come.
It was a hard-fought victory. Let him have a little peace. Rest now, Teddy. You've been a very good bear. The nightmare was finally over. Alicia, illuminated by a ray of morning sunshine, opened her eyes. Her parents were there, staring at her in disbelief for a long moment. Before taking her and holding her in a warm embrace. Who knows what challenges lay ahead for the little family? But for one magical moment at least, they all lived happily ever after.